All right, hey guys, hey Alkalise to Realize family. Thanks for joining us today. We're joined by the amazing Sharin today. She is a medicine woman who infuses wisdom of ancient teachings from all kinds of different spiritual practices from all over the world. She's created medicine of love and leads ceremonies, workshops. She does retreats, she does one-to-one healing journeys, and her greatest passion is shadow work. So working with trauma, inviting the deepest and most primal wounds to rise out of the subconscious, to be revealed, to be loved and embraced, and integrated, and to basically awaken the powerful, untamed life force of love within all of us. So Sharin, thanks so much for joining us. It's so nice to have you on. So I wanted to start off because I know we had a little talk before and you call yourself a medicine woman, which I think is really cool. I asked you if you were a shaman then, but would you explain to me the difference between you calling yourself a medicine woman and a shaman, and what medicine woman means to you?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's a great pleasure to be sharing my point of view on this amazing human experience that we're all in. So I feel it's really important to distinguish between like a shaman or a shamama, like many people are calling a woman that works as a shaman, and a medicine woman or a curandera, which is a healer. So traditionally, there has been made a distinction between a shaman and the curandero, the healer, which is the shaman is mostly associated of being the head function of a tribe, who's like more of like a general coordinator and space holder, whereas the healer is more the one that really works with the plants and that knows many different uses of branches, of leaves, of roots. So the one that really studied and is going on diets with different plants.
Right.
And for me, like I'm often being asked what I am, and I really don't like to put too many labels or names, but I feel that medicine woman is what goes best with everything I do. I feel that each and every one of us is a medicine woman and a medicine man, and we're all carrying different medicines. And I call myself a medicine woman because I feel I'm working with the medicine of love. I am devoted to the ancient remembrance of the mysticism and of the wisdom that my soul and my blood lineage is bringing. And I have basically dedicated my life towards healing. So I feel that medicine woman, the one that remembers the others and herself of the medicine that we're all carrying, is what resonates most with me and what I'm doing in life.
That's so nice. And a lot of people kind of like believe that when you get ill or anything like that, a lot of the bad things that happen are because on an energetic level you're kind of out of alignment, or you're not kind of vibrating in the right frequency and stuff. Do you believe this too, that if you get into alignment with love, everything else can fall into place, not just energetically, not just emotionally, mentally, but even physically as well?
Yes, I truly believe that. And I've assisted very many interesting works of like shamans from Peru and Ecuador and Brazil, and they were all sharing like the similar transmission with me. And that was when people came with cancer or with like really strong and almost terminally ill diseases, was because they'd fallen out of that alignment with like loving themselves and believing that love is real, because they never received that transmission of others for their own lives. And in the shamanic way of like healing and working, we see the manifestation of something that happened way earlier, which could have been a thought, which then created into a belief system, which was an ignored emotion, which then ultimately created itself into like a block. We say that the last body that is like offering us the opportunity to heal is always the physical body.
Mm.
So at first we might feel like this disturbance, we might go a little bit out of alignment, then we start to worry, then we might go into anxiety, depression, and then suddenly the physical body is saying like, okay, now you can't ignore what's going on anymore. And this is when many people start looking at themselves and be like, hang on, I'm having this chronic disease, or I'm starting to suffer this and that, like what's actually happening. So I feel that like when something really intensely manifests in the physical body, it's because we actually can't ignore anymore, or this is the message. So the physical body is like calling us into alignment and saying, okay, now you can't escape anymore, you can't ignore it anymore, you can't shut your eyes. And this is for many people when their awakening is starting. Like I worked with people who were in ceremonies, who were dying and who just wanted to find their peace. And that was really ultimately they came back into their heart center, and where they acknowledged where they couldn't love themselves for who they've been, or which part of their story they couldn't embrace. And so I really feel what you're saying is very true. When we fall out of that alignment of trusting ourselves, our own wisdom, or the love that always guides us, then this is when our physical body starts to crumble and we lose a little bit of the course.
And it's interesting actually, because sometimes I've noticed where, say if you like someone breaks a leg, a lot of people might say that actually their higher self or their angels have actually made them fall and break their leg, so they have to physically stop because, like you say, they weren't paying attention, they weren't noticing that their busy life was making them stressed and like ruining their energy and stuff. So you get to a point where your body physically says enough is enough, where you literally have to lie down and contemplate life and make some changes, and it forces you to do that almost.
I remember
go on.
work with this wisdom that I was really resistant, where I was saying like, oh yeah, just because now I have a tummy ache or I have a headache, I don't believe that this is all being interrelated. And I noticed that there was a part of me that was like resistant to really fully embrace that wisdom. And then I started to observe like, on which side of my body am I like cutting myself, or am I hitting the toe? And then I noticed that like, because the feminine side is very much considered with like the left side of the body, and the masculine energy, the concept, because per se like energy is androgynous, but like for us to be embracing and helping and healing and realizing and acknowledging what's happening, we often work with those concepts that's presented in many spiritual traditions. So feminine left side, masculine right side. Right. And as soon as I really started to incorporate that, I noticed that when I was very much in the head or very much in the doing, I would like hurt my masculine side to just kind of like slow down, like be in the feminine, be receptive, like be creative, like be nurturing towards yourself. So I noticed that there are teachings that even if we want to have them as like truth or not, that are always speaking to us. The same with animals, same with like people that come into our life. Basically it's all law of attraction. So whatever we need to receive as messages, whichever conversation we need to hold, whatever information we need to receive, it's coming. And it's our decision if we embrace that or not.
That's amazing, because I'd always known that we've always got like a masculine and feminine side of our brain, and that energetically there's a masculine and feminine side, but I'd never thought about it in terms of when you say you hit something, that it could be telling you that you need to work on one of those energies. So do you think as well it could be, say if you were to manifest like say like something in your shoulder, like a stiff shoulder or something on your like right side, could that be that you need to work on something energetically within your did you say the right was feminine or masculine?
Right is masculine.
Masculine. So could it be that you need to actually do some work with your masculine energy, or is it just literally that like it could be to do with your feminine as well? It doesn't necessarily work as clear cut as that.
Well, I feel with like messages from the universe, and especially like messages in your own body, like they're so personal. And so if I can share like a few insights that I'm having. So for example, when the masculine would be like more tensed, then it could that you have more holding, like more unnecessary holding, whereas the feminine could be really relaxed, which is kind of representing this duality of like the masculine, the Shiva, being the one that holds the space, the witness, and the feminine that flows. So when you are very tensed in the right side, it could be that you have like unnecessary holding.
Mm-hmm.
So information of like, what are you holding on to? Like, what is it you don't allow to flow in your feminine side? And that's ultimately one of the, what you're speaking about, one of the core woundings that is happening everywhere on the planet, within us, within relationships, within family constellations, friendship constellations, that the feminine was so suppressed, or the feminine as an embodiment of a woman was so suppressed in the society that there was a lot of like disempowering energies towards women. So the masculine embodied in the man and the shadow aspect was like trying to suppress the woman. So there has been a lot of holding and a lot of pushing, and the feminine kind of took that on. What is that doing to our internal world is that our inner feminine doesn't feel safe to fully be herself, to fully flow, to fully share herself. A lot of women are fearing to really step into their power because the ancestral trauma of like us having been burned, been strangled, or suppressed for when we were in our true power kind of led to, yeah, fear to truly shine. So the masculine has an unnecessary holding, and the feminine has like an unnecessary fear, which we shall release in this transformational times of today, so we can work on the healthy balance between our feminine and masculine energy on the inside as well as on the outside. And yeah.
Because there's a lot that's been like suppressed, like you say, about the feminine energy, and a lot of people are saying that the divine feminine is rising again. Some people think it's like going to be the rise of the divine feminine and then that she's going to take over, but I think that now we're coming to a balanced time. But obviously there's a lot of work like to do with the collective like feminine energy and traumas and things, and the collective consciousness with feminine energies. Do you think that, obviously it's been suppressed, so there's a lot of work to do there? Do you think there's an equal amount of work to do with the masculine side as well, because they might not know how to balance themselves back, or there's still a lot of kind of unresolved issues within the masculine as well, do you think?
Yeah, of course. I feel there has been like such a disbalance. And when we speak about the rise of the divine feminine, we don't speak of the rise of the women, and the men are just going to be like, hang on, what happened to us? Like, it's the rise of the divine feminine within man and within women.
Right, yeah.
And what is the rise of the divine feminine? It's basically like the connectedness, the super sensitivity, it's the flow, it's the creativity, it's in connection with the feminine principle, which is, for example, honoring the mother, honoring the earth. When we look at what's happening, like economically, when we look at what's happening with the deforestation in the Amazon and the deforestation of the last resorts of amazing forests in Europe for IKEA, it's that we see very much like the unhealthy masculine principle, which is the doer, which is the manifester, which is like short-term orientation. So we can transfer like the feminine, the masculine principle onto anything, onto economics, onto how we do environmental care, and how we do take care of ourselves. We can embrace it as like vulnerability. Like, we're all being brought up in a dominantly masculine society where it's all about success, determination, goal orientation, where it's about showing strength. Whereas like the qualities that come with vulnerability as new strength, with like showing emotions, with working what's really alive and true in the moment, is also the rise of the feminine, because the feminine is like the presence, the connectedness with the flow of emotions inside of us. And if we would embrace like the creativity that we all carry, I feel that like the world would come up with so many new technologies and innovations that would help us to slow down the excessive amount of waste, the starvation of so many countries, whereas there's a population that's so much more wealthy. Like, I feel that has a lot to do with the femininity as well, the nurturance, the care, the emotions, the gentleness, the softness. And it has to do with us both genders, or all genders, coming into the balance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that toxic masculinity is a real thing? Because people talk about it a lot. It's like the masculine energies have kind of like come too much and become too toxic, or do you think it's more like a wounded type masculine energy that needs to just kind of find itself again?
I feel what's really important with like all those like labels and names and toxicity and wounding is like that we really get clear on what we want, rather than like picking out all the things that are not working. And like as I said, the division between like masculine and feminine energy sometimes is creating even more division.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel those are concepts to understand from our mother wound, from our primal father wound, that helps us to relate. But generally, like this whole talk of like toxic feminine, toxic masculine, sometimes I feel that like the substance of where we're actually wanting to go gets a bit blurry.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is toxic masculinity, there is toxic femininity, there is toxicity. And I feel ultimately what that is pointing towards is that I feel that humanity often is being kept in this repetitive, vicious cycle of like blame and guilt and shame. And what we need to come back to, independently if we're working on our feminine or our masculine, if we're working on our ancestral lineage, if we're working on our relationships, is the self-sovereignty, that we are responsible for ourselves
Mm-hmm.
and for our, and I feel that like healing from a really deep place is like taking actions towards being a good human that is connected to its heart.
Yeah, no, that's dead interesting. Because I was thinking sometimes people use it almost as a label to just throw at men sometimes, or, you know, this toxic masculinity and stuff. And it's kind of, it's not where we want to be. We want to be focusing on like the healing and supporting each other and coming together. And with the embracing your feminine side, and you're saying about caring for the world and being that nurturing type energy, if we were to, like you say, focus on doing that for ourselves too, showing ourselves the self-love rather than being so involved in the external world and, you know, getting your job and all this kind of stuff, it's the only way we can actually start healing the world to begin with, is healing ourselves and stop kind of suppressing our emotions and not thinking about them, and instead taking that time to bring the feminine energies out and care for ourselves and stuff. And you know, when people do suppress their emotions and they don't want to face it, how do you think, how important do you think it is that people like actually do face their emotions and look at their traumas and try and heal, rather than just you know, suppressing it and allowing it to just be in the sidelines?
Yeah, I feel that's a very important question, and I feel that has been a really strong invitation for many people around the globe through the quarantine times and coronavirus, because often there's this distraction of like human doings rather than human beings.
Mm-hmm.
So as soon as we pause and there's just stillness, and there's not the distraction of like a lot of work, a lot of surroundings, social gatherings, parties, alcohol, bars, or whichever institutions that are kind of like distracting our focus from ourselves, as soon as that stops, stuff comes up. And as we were speaking earlier, like the trauma manifests later when not being dealt with properly in like even more severe illnesses. So I feel that facing our trauma is the first step and the key liberation of what we're actually here for. I feel that trauma is activation. So rather than seeing trauma as something that like keeps us small, and which often leads to this kind of like victimhood, like, oh, and when I was young, I was violated, or I have been, this was done to me, this was done to me, this was done to me. Whereas when we truly work with that trauma, and when we can accept that life is our teacher, then we start seeing that every trauma and every strong situation that we're passing through in our life is holding such a profound key and such a profound teaching, and is actually inviting us to step up to a new version that we haven't been before. So I feel it's vital to face that when we want to come into our own sovereign power. And trauma is like creating blocks and is creating tension, and it's basically life force that can't move through us. So let's say there's a being that suffered abuse. There is a block in the sacral chakra because this is related to our sexuality. So when the sexuality, the sexual vital life force can't flow through us, that means that we can't flow with the natural flow of energy that is like constantly going through our body naturally. So to return to that natural state is to return to our power. And if we do not face the blockages that we carry, we will never receive that flow and be that transmission of fluidity that we actually came here to be. Like ultimately, we're all channels. All the chakras are generating constantly energy. We're being aligned between the earth and the sky, and we are able to be that purity and that pure receptivity of what we're here for. And if we do not feel our trauma, we can't step into that.
And these blocks as well, they can really hold you back in all areas of life, can't they? And like you say, manifest disease and all sorts. So if someone, because I found myself a spiritual kind of teacher a few years ago, and honestly, like the lessons I've learned has just been so amazing since having that guidance and having that guide. But a lot of people don't meet a teacher, they don't have someone that can guide them and mirror to them like what they need to work on. So you're saying then that trauma is a really good place to start in terms of knowing where to start working on.
Yeah.
And would you say there's any other things that people could notice in their life, or that could happen that people could then go, right, this is another thing that I need to start working on? You know, if they've not had much traumatic experiences in the past, or everyday things, what could you share with the listeners kind of some things that could trigger them to realize that there's something to work on there?
I feel that we're all guided by desires and inspiration. And I really like that understanding that inspiration is when how spirit speaks through us. So when we follow our inspiration, then we're actually following the universal guidance of where we need to end up with. So for example, when I started on my path, my inspiration throughout the chapters of my journey always has been different. And I feel what has been guiding me was actually the ability to listen, to receive, and to respond. So I've been guided for when my spiritual journey started to study like the archetypes and to study the sacred feminine, to study those ancient red 10 traditions. And I went on that journey, and this is how I developed like the women's work that I'm doing today, and that ever since that like grown. Because once we start opening field and we respond to that, then I feel that like all these information are coming because we have opened ourselves to receive them. So I feel like what to work on is always to just be really present with where our inspiration, where the hints and the guidances that we're all receiving are guiding us, and really respond.
Yeah. And I suppose people, like relationships in your life, or negative issues that seem to come up again and again, the same issue you keep getting with the same type of person and it keeps going wrong in a relationship. they're also kind of good ways of you being aware there's something here that needs working on as well, isn't there? And so,
And
go on.
the very guidance is also to just follow your expansion.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that often when people get stuck and they feel really contracted, or they feel they're like being shown the constantly repetitive same old, same old, same old, it's because they're being asked actually to move on. They're being asked to like adapt a trait or a quality within their lives that actually like changes them, and also changes like the vibrational frequency, the vibration, the attraction that they're in the moment. So when someone would look around themselves and actually just see, hang on, I don't like this here, 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 there's conflict, 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 then one question is, what does it have to do with me? Because like everything that happens around us has something to do with you. Like, are you in conflict because you don't want to see something inside of you that is causing that conflict? Or is conflict actually being shown to you as a sign of like, hang on, it's time to move on?
Yeah.
Because what I notice in my spiritual journey as well is that the more I have changed and the more I have transformed, places, people, all things always were changing. Like, I lost a lot of people, but actually I didn't lose them. There was just space needing to be created in order to move on into the next chapter, to meet your twin flame, to meet your beloved, to meet like your spiritual family, to go on that journey that you felt you never could go because you were so attached of staying in the hometown that you grew up with. So I often feel also that conflict can like be that little gentle push out of our comfort zone to face what's really out there and waiting for you.
Yeah, that and bad situations like losing your job or something and needing to move, where you're thinking, oh no, it's the end of the world, but actually it might just be the universe pushing you that step in the right direction. If you've not started on this journey yet, a good place to start is to just like kind of to want to start, because like you say, once you start on that process, where the mind goes, energy flows. And so if you start to want and desire to become better, to vibrate at a better frequency, like you say, these different situations just start falling into place. And the more then that you are in alignment, the more you're vibrating higher, the more they just come. And you don't need to necessarily want to know what it is that's gonna come. You don't need to know. You just need to continue, take that first step and have that first desire of wanting to do the healing work, and then it all starts to flow in then, doesn't it?
Yeah, I also feel what really helps is to create rites of passages. So I notice when I look back to my own journey, or the journey that I supported, my clients, my friends, my beloved beings around me, is that decision is like kind of the seed, and it needs to be nurtured. And what I do, for example, with like coaching clients when they're really ready to step into like the highest version of themselves, to really like step into that new timeline, is to create a ritual. And that could be something really simple, but I feel that the ritual that is marking that shift within your consciousness is really, really powerful. And humanity has forgotten a lot about those rite of passages because, for example, for us women, when we received our first blood, this is officially when maidenhood starts. With the first sex and birth is like when motherhood starts. With losing our blood, this is when cronehood starts. And the same for the man. Like, there were rite of passages that were marking different transitions in consciousness, because I myself haven't experienced that when I was a little girl. I feel that we can bring back that remembrance of rite of passage and the importance to really mark transitions within our consciousness. So when someone wants to start a spiritual journey, then to just sit down and light a candle or create like a ceremony container that feels right. It doesn't need to be fancy, but just with that intention of like creating a space in which you're going to mark a change. And simply like anointing yourself and speaking that You anoint your feet to walk the path of sacred remembrance of what your soul is here for, to anoint your heart and make that commitment to be walking the path from the heart, to follow that guidance and that truth that you are carrying within yourself, to anoint your third eye and speaking about how you wish to receive those visions, how great spirit or source consciousness is guiding you to be in service. So I feel that like marking those transitions is a really important point. And sometimes I receive clients that travel like a long way, because at the moment I'm being located in the mountains in Spain, in the Alpujarras. It's very beautiful, but also very lonely. So I really see that as like an initiation, like when people come all the way to face themselves. And I love creating those rite of passages where they will look back to and be like, wow, when I did this, this is what happened afterwards. And I feel this is really important to mark those sacred crossroads where you could have gone left, but you did go right.
Yeah, that's really nice. And I've done a few different kind of like fire ceremonies and things like that at home. And they do just kind of help you really set that intention and really kind of put some time together thinking what it is that you want to achieve and how you want to become and things like that. And do you think that it's just a one-off thing that you can do, or do you think you have to kind of like then do a morning routine every day to fulfill it? Or do you think once you've set that intention and done the kind of initiation type thing, then it'll start to just roll in anyway?
I'm not a fan of routine. For me, routine isn't working, whereas I know for my beloved, for example, routine really works. So I feel like according to our human design, or according to the kind of like person that we are in this lifetime, sometimes the renewal is very helpful, sometimes it doesn't. So I feel that there's like no general answer. But what I feel to share is that, for example, in ancient times when you committed to sacred union with your beloved and ultimately with yourself, the commitment to each other and to that path of awakening was renewed every year.
Right.
So I really like celebrating that commitment to yourself. I like celebrating that commitment to your path. And often, like, the more you follow your journey and the more you follow your path, things might change. Maybe you'd committed to be committed to something more specific, and then you notice, actually, hang on, I don't want to do guided meditations anymore. I actually want to step into creating sacred toning and voice activation. So you might change your commitment, and you might change your devotion to receiving an initiation into a different sphere. So I feel that like the biggest and most transformational thing that I have done for commit to the aliveness of each and every moment, and to not commit to something specific other than the ultimate guidance that is being manifested and following my guidance in each and every moment, and that I perceive best from my heart.
That's just really nice. And people at home then, say if they couldn't kind of come to do any workshops, or they're just kind of like looking to try and do these things but start from home, there's different kind of tools that people can use, isn't there? Say like crystals, or there's online meditations and things like that. Do you have any kind of like good tips on different kind of tools that people could use, but at home tools that could help them with kind of clearing out energies, or different things like that, working with their subconscious and stuff?
Yeah, I feel that so I think 4 years ago I was living in Brazil, and I started to work with like a group of like 25 people in like a cultural center with like different ages, like starting from like 15 and the oldest one in my class was 76. So I noticed a lot of like different levels of consciousness and different. So everyone is different. That's what I want to say. And for some people, for example, active meditation works better than sitting in vipassana. So I feel like in the beginning, it's good to like explore different things. For some people, visualizations are helping. For some people, frequency music to come into a state of introspection is helping. For some people, shaking and kundalini activation practices are most where it's at. So I feel it's kind of like to try and to do different things to notice what you really want to do. For some people, journaling works. I feel often like when you look on the internet, and it's not where my spiritual activation or journey has happened at all, but I know for many people it's a very sacred tool because you get access to a lot of information, is to just follow your inspiration. But I feel when you have the possibility, it's like to search for a community. Search for like groups that either meet like online or in person, because I feel through like conversations and exchange, we're activating each other much more and sharing our own experience, how our own spiritual journey has been so far, can be really activating and uplifting.
Yeah. One of the biggest things that I found or struggled with at first was like feeling a bit of like spiritual isolation, where I kind of like was doing it all on my own, and it was only when I found a group that I realized how much you actually need them. Like we all help each other, we all need each other. We'll never get to like say where we want to be. Like for me, it'd be like Christ consciousness. I'd love to achieve like that kind of a consciousness, but without the helping hand of each other, it's not going to happen. And we're all actually designed to trigger and help each other in these different ways. So to find the community, it's just nice to have the support and to have the helping hand, to know that you're not alone and that you're not losing your mind and stuff like that. So that's dead nice. I wanted to go back to what you were saying about, celebrating once you do like an initiation ceremony or something. When I started doing my journey, I found that like when I'd noticed something within myself or I've decided to make a change, the journey to actually changing can sometimes be hard and frustrating because you're just not happy with the way that you've been. How do you find like self-acceptance? Do you think it's through those like kind of celebrating a year after and just looking back and seeing how far you've come? Is that how you can carry on with the self-acceptance within the journey, as opposed to just never always wanting to be somewhere but you're not that person, and so you don't have like, you're not happy about where you are?
Yeah, I feel like what you're pointing to is this ultimately comparison, because if you look somewhere and you think like, oh, this is how I want to be rather than how I am right now, then the key is that self-acceptance, that you are that person that you are in that moment. And feel that I often had like a similar interesting situation happening where I could already see myself as something or feel myself as a version that I know to be true, but I wasn't in that moment. And ultimately, like when we feel like, oh, this is where I want to go, this is how I want to be, we can follow that guidance, but without the frustration. And this is where I feel that this really interesting obstacle of the very much patriarchal society, where we are conditioned to be a certain form, and only when we are that certain form we are successful, we reach acceptance. Because if I'm not this, then I don't like myself, because I need to be this to be liked. And this is really what I feel helps with like being vulnerable in our experience, to really be like, wow, I'm having such a hard time to be overcoming comparison, because I actually really would like to be free of that. I like to be free of like judgments, of ultimately not being able to embrace myself where I am in this journey. And when this is happening to us, we often also notice that in the external manifestation of life, we judge others. So it's just like, oh, look at them, or look at her, look at him. He or she is this and this way. And that isn't helping anyone
Mm.
because we can't embrace what really is.
How do you actually like learn to accept yourself? Just literally trying to get over it and that's it? Or is there kind of techniques that you could do to learn to be happier within the moment, I suppose, with how you are?
I feel this is one of the biggest teachings of every spiritual path, because if you're fully present in the here and now, you are. There's no looking back of like, oh, I was happier when I had that boyfriend, or when I was living at that place, or there's no looking into the future. If I only would be like that, then I would be. If you really arrive fully into the here and now, then this is the acceptance, because ultimately there is nothing else. If you can't find, and there's this really beautiful story of Osho that I really resonate with, and he was giving a satsang in his ashram in India, and there was a woman, and she came up to him and said, Osho, I don't know what I should do, like if I should stay in this ashram or if I should leave. I don't know where I would be happier. And he just looked at her and said, if you can't be happy here, you won't be happy there. And this is something that really stayed with me, is that like often our mind wanders to the solution of, if we only would be different, or if only the situation would be different, then we would receive happiness. No, it's not like that. It's about fully arriving into the now. If you arrive in the here and now, the tears can be blissful, because tears are not judged by our mind as being something as painful or negative or as sad. There's true liberation. There's a true key of freedom when we can embrace where we are right now.
Something that sometimes helps me is just remembering that everything is as it's meant to be, and like it's all just part of your divine plan and journey. So sometimes I can be thinking, oh, you know, I wish I didn't have this negative trait, but for whatever reason I'm meant to still have that right now. And just like realizing that, you know, everything that's happened has made you who you are. It's taught you the lessons that you needed to learn. But a lot of people can struggle to stay in the here and now because of the pain that's in their bodies, or the trauma, or things that, you know, a lot of people at the minute, they don't want to be in their bodies, do they? They'd rather escape to the past, the future, whatever it is, because they're just trying to avoid being here right now. And why do you think it is that people avoid it? Is it just think that there's like pains and it's boring, or what do you think it is that people avoid about being in the present?
I feel that we are a collection of the accumulations and of the blockages of our past. So when we come into the present moment, it's maybe really scary to be free of that, because if you fully be present with the aliveness of yourself, there is nothing. There's just breath in, out. There wouldn't be all that mind, because the mind is like carrying and remembering and like attached to the story of what has been happened to us, of what have happened, so I feel that we have a lot of baggage. And often I noticed that in like trauma work, that people are so afraid of releasing their burden, because they become so comfortable with what they have been, even though actually is uncomfortable, but the complaining about the uncomfortableness is already so indoctrinated and so ingrained into their personality, that if they would not have that sickness, or if they would not have had that difficult childhood, then who would they be? So there is also a personification happening with things that have happened to us. And I feel that sometimes letting go of that is really scary. So there is a comfortableness with with kind of repeating over and over again of what happened to us.
Yeah. And
And I that the true liberation is in that moment when you come into what you were speaking about earlier, into that acceptance of like basically the liberation of the past for me comes through the process of alchemy. And what does alchemy mean? Like it's taking one thing and through the process of transformation being another thing. And I feel that the alchemy of life, which is that important step, is to take something that has happened for you and alchemize the teaching, and then take that teaching and just go on with it. And like, and then this happened. No, this happened. Okay, great. What am I going to do with this? What do I have learned? What are the qualities I received from that? And then use those on your spiritual path. Really beautiful practice that I want to share that just came to mind. When you draw a timeline of your life, and with like different stages, like maybe to which school you went, or where you lived, or what was your relationship then, or what was the activity you've done, what you have studied, and just look of your life and kind of alchemize the quality or the gift that you received from each and every life stage. So, for example, I spent a lot of time with my grandmother when I was a little girl. And when I look back at this time, I saw how she was teaching me to communicate with angels, to communicate with spirit, to be singing and chanting. And when I look back at all those different stages where I've spent time with different teachers and different places on this planet, then I kind of get an overview on how grateful I am for life and what it has taught me. And I feel sometimes pausing and looking at the transformation that we've already done is really helping us to fuel what, to kind of give us an overview on the tools and on the gifts that we already carry in ourselves.
That's a really nice. I'm gonna try that myself tonight. But I like how you said as well about so you're talking about spending time with your grandma and the different teachers in your life. And earlier I was saying about having a spiritual teacher, but in reality, everyone and everything in your life is a teacher, isn't it? And you can almost, it's a nice thing to do is to look back and see how people have taught you, even if you didn't necessarily see them as a teacher, they've always taught you something. So that's nice. I'll definitely try that.
And that's a really important view and perspective to cultivate, to really be tuning into the gifts that you receive from each and every moment. And I feel like one realization or one commitment to myself has really fueled my spiritual growth, and that was to see each situation and each chapter of my life as a teacher as such. And often it was really interesting when I studied with one shaman in Ecuador. I said, oh, and I was really carrying still that really strong grief of that I really wanted to have like a spiritual mother or a spiritual father that could have like given me all this information so I could have grown like much earlier. And then he was studying sometimes people who come to transform this world, they need to recognize the teacher within themselves rather than like looking on the outside, like, where's that wise man, that wise woman, where is this person, where is this person? And really like becoming into the wisdom that we all carry. And I feel solitude is something that really taught that to me. In my pregnancy of my daughter, I gave birth in Bali, so I was like far away from the European comfort zone of having like tribe and family around, and I was with my beloved there, and I was like having this really strong moment of grief of like, I want to have my grandmothers around, I want to have all those wise crone women around me who just like share all this deep wisdom. And I was falling into this place of realizing that I can call upon those energetic qualities within myself. And I just birthed, before I birthed my daughter, this immensely deep wisdom of the connection that I have towards my lineage.
Mm.
And without being connected with them physically, I just opened a whole more mysterious connection to the divine, and to that connection of so many generations, and of the wisdom of that we are all collectively connected as women through our wombs, and ultimately to the core of Mother Earth. And it's been really profound for me to realize that whenever we miss something, we can find and activate that quality within us as well.
That's such a nice story. Because I suppose when you like feel like you're lonely or whatever, or you lose things like say friends, or you've not got your family around, you can really feel like you've missed out. But then to remember that it is all just within you and stuff, and you can connect, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And when you've been kind of traveling around, you've like studied loads of different kind of spiritual techniques from all different ancient cultures and stuff, haven't you? Do you work with kind of different guides, like spiritual guides from these different cultures, and like tap into different kind of lineages and like information streams through them too? And do you have any particular ones that you like to work with on like a continual basis? Or
I feel when I transitioned with my work from the kind of masculine principle of like planning and saying that's what I'm going to do, that's what's going to happen, into like a more feminine approach of like guiding through the aliveness in each and every moment, I noticed that like the different teachings that I have received and different studies I made on this planet are speaking through me in order what's needed in that moment.
yeah,
So I feel very much inspired by all of them, but not all of them are equally valid or important in every moment. So it's much more of a question or of a matter of fully being present of what is being asked, of a certain healing that is happening in that moment.
mm-hmm. Hi.
Battery went down. Sorry.
It's all right. Are you all sorted?
Yes.
Cool. So I was going to ask you a little bit about like kind of how you got into doing what you're doing, like your journey and stuff. Were you always into it, or did you have some kind of epiphany, or how did you get to being where you are, doing what you're doing, and learning all the different kind of techniques and spiritual wisdom that you know?
Yeah, it's been a really beautiful gift of life. When I was 17, my father has brought me to a very magical place in Portugal, the highest mountain in Monchique, to a shamanic course. And the name of that course was "What is your place in the universe?"
Right.
And he was working with morning dew and shamanic drum journeys and amazingly deep activations. And he sat down with me often in the evening and showed me his ancient scriptures of books and channeled symbols from the Himalayas. And then he looked at me and said, "You know what, Sharin, why I'm going to share this all to you?" And I was like, "No." And he said, "Well, because that's what you are here to do as well. You're here to remember and to remind those around you of the mystics that have been buried and forgotten." And I was in the middle of my A level, and I was just thinking, like, wow, what is this world all about? And since then, I feel like my life never has been normal again.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, really opened myself to receive those codes to be activated and implemented into the humanity and the new tribe and the new earth and the new age that we're currently birthing.
Mm-hmm. And so how did you end up going and traveling to different places? Was that just something that you decided to do, or were you just divinely guided to each different place and each different kind of culture to learn everything that you know?
Yeah, I feel that after coming from the seminar, I started to wanting to understand more about all ancient cultures, and one of the most ancient one or most present ones that I was interested at that time was India, because I was so fascinated about the yogic and tantric and Ayurvedic culture and the teachings that those Vedas are sharing with humanity. So I went to India and stayed there for about 2 months, and I was coming back changed. Like from every journey, I just came back changed. So that journey was really gifting me my openness as with my tantric studies, with full body orgasms without having any physical intercourse. And I remembered I was 19 at that time, and I was thinking like, wow, what if all humanity would know about the pleasure that we can experience in being in this body and being activated, our physical, emotional, energetic, auric body, like how orgasmic this whole experience of life that we're living to only such a small percentage could really, really be. So I started after that to work with tantric principles and to dive into like the activation of kundalini through yoga, through different kriyas, through different body postures, through mudras. And then I was really fascinated with Morocco actually, and the old plant wisdom that they had there. So I went there with my former boyfriend, and I studied the culture of Sufi. I studied the culture of just all those ancient mysteries. And then I went to South America. So wherever my inspiration was guiding me, I I focused that this is what I wanted to experience. I earned the money and I went.
Mm. And now you're here doing your own retreats and things like that.
Yeah, I feel one of the biggest breakthroughs with my studies for what I'm doing right now in this moment of time was like 5 years ago when I experienced a really deep trauma myself. I was abused by two men, and that was a really, really difficult and very transformational time in my life, because it was my turn to fully reclaim my sexual power, my sovereign self, and not be falling into victim, into blaming those men for taking away the power that I am. And it was a real invitation from the universe to deeply, deeply, deeply heal.
Mm.
And while I was tuning into what I was needing at that time, I was suicidal and depressed. Like it just came to me, this really deep calling to be going to South America. So I canceled all my plans. I quit my job and I decided to go on Skyscanner and just get the cheapest flight to whichever country in South America.
Mm.
And that happened to be Quitos in Ecuador. So I went. And that has been a really powerful decision because it guided me into the activation of this, plant and animal medicines that I'm currently working with. And I drank for the first time the sacred beverage and sacred medicine of ayahuasca. And I just suddenly felt really deeply home,
Mm.
home in those ceremonies, home in those rituals. I felt so deeply at home in the Amazon. And through following like this inspiration and the guidance, I have been gifted with a lot of beautiful initiations of how to work with hape, how to work with kambu, how to serve those containers of sacred mother medicine, ayahuasca. And how to work with Sananga, and it's been a really really life-changing journey, because since then I'm drawing a lot of inspiration out of the tribal consciousness and those sacred earth wisdom keepers that have been sharing their divine gifts with me.
That's really nice. And
Yeah.
what was coming to mind is that just kind of like you trusting your gut, really, and when you had these thoughts or desires or ideas, sometimes they don't feel that strong. Sometimes you're not really sure what you want to be doing, but you just need to trust that the universe has got your back and that it will be guiding you and taking you where you need to go.
And I feel that like our intuition is like a little altar on the inside, and maybe you never did an offering towards yourself or towards you and your connection to the universe, but the more you respond to how the universe is communicating with you through your intuition, through your gut feeling, through your visions, through your dreams, through whichever of those incredible many channels that the universe is always communicating with us, it's communicating right now with you. As soon as you respond, and respond in a very conscious way, it's like, it feels scary because it's out of my comfort zone, or because I'm not used to be doing this, but I'm doing it anyway. You will notice that on the inside, there is kind of just this bond being created of fully being able with each and every step to trust more and to trust a little bit more. And then you notice that the guidance and the way that spirit is communicating with you in each and every moment is just getting a lot clearer.
Mm-hmm. And just as I'm going to ask you this as a last question then, and then I'll let you get on with the beautiful day that it looks like you're having there. Do you think that there'll always be work to do? Do you think there's always like something that you can work on, or do you think that that's again like if you have the self-acceptance, you realize you're perfect as you are? What are your thoughts on it?
Well, I feel it's the divine dance between the human and the multidimensional light being that we are at the same time. It's kind of that dance between the three-dimensional reality that and the multidimensional reality that we're having. So one of my teachers that I would like to quote at this time was like, Sharin, when someone tells you that there's nothing anymore to do, then they wouldn't be here on this earth. I resonate with that, because if you're not working on yourself, you are working with the collective, you're working with the animals. And I feel that working with the awakening of humanity and human consciousness is giving you so many beautiful opportunities to serve and work with.
Mm.
And I noticed that animals sometimes come to me and just lie in my aura, and I feel guided to touch them in a certain way. Sometimes I feel to be in communion and just speaking and sitting in nature to receive their wisdom. So I feel that there's always something to receive, something to do, and something to give. And like life comes in waves, you might have like really deep shadow valleys that you need to walk through at one point, and then you're coming out and you're going much more into the flow, into the celebration, into the giving, into the lightness. But I feel that there's always something that we're here to do, and that to do may be just listening in that moment, or that to do is just to follow your guidance and have that conversation with a stranger on the street. That to do is to just appreciate life and hold that frequency of gratitude. Or that to do is just wailing like a little baby through the deepest, darkest pain that you need to release. Yeah. So I feel that there's always something that we can do, but the doing not in the necessarily active connotation. Sometimes also just being is enough.
Mm. Oh, Sharin, you've shared so much like beautiful words, and it's such a nice thing to end it on. Like, I think that we've talked loads about kind of how to be in the moment and, you know, releasing your trauma and what you can do about it. And I think it's so appropriate right now with like everything going on, all the stress and the chaos and stuff, to help people find that kind of like safety or that sanctuary within and stuff. So thanks so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom. You've taught me so much already just in this hour or so that we've been talking. It's been such a blessing to have you on. I really appreciate you spending the time for us, and yeah, thanks so much.
Yeah, and I want to thank everyone that is doing this journey, that is like looking to where it hurts. And one simple guidance I want to share that really has transformed my life is to always go where the fear is, because it's kind of both lies. And when we overcome the contractions and the resistance to certain situation, we are fully opening ourselves to where the deeper gift lies in each and every situation for us. So thank you for everyone going through what hurts and waking up and not going back to sleep and inspiring others and sit in ceremony. And yeah, it's amazing, this journey of like becoming one as the spiritual powerful tribe with all our medicines and sharing all our gifts that we came here to share with each other. Thank you.
Oh, you're so beautiful. Like, yeah, and I'd like to thank everyone for doing that too. It's amazing to see such transformation happening, and I can't wait to see what's coming for the future as well, and how yeah, all the healing and the balance and light that we can bring, really.
Yeah.
So Sharin, if someone wants to find you online and like kind of, do you have any like pages that you share your wisdom on or anything like that? How can we find you?
Yes, I have a Facebook page which is called Medicine of Love, which you can just type into Facebook and have a look. And I have an Instagram page which is medicine.of.love. And this is where I share transmission videos, where I share music, where I share events and retreats that I'm hosting or co-facilitating. And yeah, stay in touch, reach out. I'm offering individual work also online, which really helped a lot of people that got stuck. And just like one session can often liberate like a blockage or a belief system that is really holding you back for stepping up to who you truly are. And here and grateful to be in service to love and to the sacred forest that is bringing us back into the full, powerful medicine women and men that we all are.
Yeah, the medicine of love. Well, we'll make sure we put your links down in the information bit so that people don't have to be trying to search. You can just click straight through. And have an awesome day, and get back to your little beautiful girl. I could hear her making a few noises before. She sounds dead sweet. So have an awesome day. Thanks again for coming, and Alkalise to Realize family, thanks so much for joining in and coming and tuning in to hear Sharin's wisdom. All have a blessed day, and we'll speak soon.
Bye,
Bye.
family.